In this video, I'm going to solve the limit of theta, the limit of 1 minus cosine theta over theta as theta approaches 0. So if you look back at the two previous videos, you'll notice that this is the third and final, sadly, trigonometric limit that I'm going to be covering, I believe, maybe not. So in the first video, which was the sine of theta over theta, I solved that using images. In the tangent of theta over theta, I solved that partially by using images, partially by doing it algebraically. And now in this video, the 1 minus cosine of theta over theta, I'm going to solve that entirely using algebra. So it's going to be a fun one. Okay, so forget this limit part over here, basically put it in brackets. I just want to evaluate this, and then I'll come back to the limit. I'm still going to, of course, write the limit down. 1 minus cosine theta over theta. Okay, now what I'm going to do here is, I don't really like having 1 minus cosine theta. I'm going to multiply by the conjugate. So basically the conjugate is in this case, of 1 minus cosine theta would be 1 plus cosine theta. And to make sure that I don't change what this is equal to, I'm going to divide by 1 plus cosine theta, so I'm essentially multiplying by 1. Okay, you might notice 1 minus cosine theta times 1 plus cosine theta. That is a difference of squares. So we will have 1 squared, or 1, minus cosine squared of theta over theta times 1 plus cosine theta. Okay? Now, in case you didn't know your pre-calculus too well, sine squared plus cosine squared is equal to 1. To prove it on a graph, basically, let's say this is part of a unit circle. That was a horrible drawing, forgive me. That's not better, but okay. Sine squared would basically be right over here. I'll just call it y squared, and then x squared, and then since it's a unit circle, this is 1. This is essentially the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. But instead of c squared, we have 1 because that's the radius squared. Okay, moving on with this problem, I can, first of all, I can write the limit as theta goes to 0, and then the limit as theta goes towards 0, now of sine squared over theta times 1 plus cosine theta. Okay? Now, what I'm going to do here is pretty interesting. I'm going to break up this fraction into different parts, okay? And you're going to see why I did it, how I did it, in just a sec. So this is going to be equal to the limit as theta approaches 0 of sine of theta times sine of theta over theta. So now I dealt with these two signs and this theta. Then I still need to multiply by 1 plus cosine theta so that I can include all of these terms in it, okay? And now when you have a limit of three, in this case, you consider them variables multiplied by each other, it's going to be equal to the limit of each individual one of them. So it's going to be the limit of sine theta times the limit as theta approaches 0 of sine theta over theta times the limit of theta as it approaches 0 of 1 plus, this should be a 1. That's a fancy one over there. It looked a bit like a 2. 1 plus cosine of theta. Now you'll notice that if we draw little thing over here, as theta approaches 0, the y value, or the sine, approaches 0. So now in this case, again, we don't need to write the limit of theta approaches 0 because now we're plugging in for values. And now limit as theta approaches 0 of sine of theta over theta. This was the first trigonometric identity we proved. It is equal to 1. And then this right here I'm going to evaluate that just because. It's going to be equal to 1/2 because as theta approaches 0, we could just use this. Cosine of theta gets, or the x value gets closer and closer to 1. This is equivalent of saying 1 over 1 plus 1, which is equal to 1/2. So now when we multiply all these together, you could have immediately seen up here, sine of theta as theta approaches 0 is going to be 0. 0 times anything is going to be equal to 0. Anyway, 0 times 1 times 1/2 is, it's all going to be equal to 0. So the answer is going to be 0. So rewriting this, the limit as theta approaches 0 of 1 minus cosine theta divided by theta is equal to 0. Okay. Just going to box off that answer because why not? Anyways, thank you much for watching, and goodbye.